Daughter, aren't the $4,000 a month enough for you? My father's voice echoed in the sterile hospital room. I stared at him, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought he was joking. But the look in his eyes told me this was no joke. I forced out a nervous laugh. Dad, I managed with my savings and my freelance work. His face went pale, then red. Just at that moment, my husband Derek and my mother-in-law Gloria walked through the door. Their arms were full of shopping bags from expensive boutiques. I never could have imagined what was about to happen next. The fluorescent hospital lights buzzed overhead. Maya opened her eyes slowly, the fog of exhaustion still clinging to her. The first thing she noticed was the dull ache in her lower body, a reminder of the 12 hours of labor she had just endured. But that pain faded the moment she turned her head. There, in a simple plastic bassinet beside her bed, lay her son, tiny, perfect. His little fists were clenched, and his face was scrunched up in that adorable newborn way. Tears streamed down Maya's cheeks as she reached out to touch his soft skin. Everything she had been through, every sleepless night, every moment of exhaustion, it was all worth it. She adjusted the thin blanket over her shoulders and looked around the room. It was a shared room in a county hospital. 3 other beds lined the walls, though only one other was occupied by a woman sleeping quietly in the corner. The walls were a faded green, and the ceiling fans squeaked with every rotation. But Maya didn't care. It was clean, and it was what they could afford. She looked at her baby again. He was wrapped in a second-hand blanket she had found at a thrift store 2 months ago, light yellow with little ducks on it. She had washed it 3 times before she was satisfied it was clean enough for her son. When she showed it to Gloria, her mother-in-law had laughed. "A used blanket, Maya. Really? That's disgusting. You're too cheap. What kind of mother wraps her baby in someone else's garbage?" Maya had swallowed the insult like she always did. What else could she do? Derek never defended her. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. "Mom's just old-fashioned," he would say later. "She doesn't mean anything by it." But she did mean it. Gloria always meant it. Maya had married Derek 3 years ago against her father's wishes. Richard Callahan was a successful businessman who owned a chain of construction companies across the state. He had wanted better for his only daughter. But Maya had fallen in love with Derek, a mid-level accountant at a small firm. She believed in him. She believed in their future together. She was wrong. Looking back, Maya could see the signs she had missed. The way Derek always handed his paycheck to his mother to manage the family finances. The way Gloria controlled every dollar, every decision. The way Maya was given a small allowance that barely covered groceries, let alone anything else. When she got pregnant, things got harder. Derek's salary wasn't enough, or so Gloria claimed. Maya was given just enough money to buy the bare essentials. She wanted to buy good prenatal vitamins, the ones her doctor recommended. Gloria had scoffed. "Those fancy vitamins? What a waste. I never took vitamins when I was pregnant with Derek, and he turned out fine. Get the free ones from the clinic." Maya had tried to argue, but Derek just shrugged. "Mom knows best, honey. She raised me, didn't she?" So Maya did what she had to do. She started working. Even though she was pregnant, she took on freelance graphic design jobs late into the night. Her back ached. Her eyes burned. Her belly grew heavier with each passing week. But she saved every penny she earned. She didn't spend it on herself. No new clothes, no fancy food, no indulgences. Every cent went toward her baby. The blanket, the onesies, the diapers she had stocked up on during sales. She was proud of herself for being resourceful, for not being a burden. But she was exhausted. Maya's thoughts were interrupted by the door creaking open. A nurse walked in with a warm smile. "Mrs. Walker, you're awake. How are you feeling? Ready to try feeding the baby?" "I'm okay, thank you. A little sore but happy." Maya's voice was hoarse from exhaustion. "Your son is beautiful. 7 pounds, 8 ounces. Perfectly healthy." The nurse checked Maya's IV and adjusted her pillow. "You did great, Mrs. Walker. I saw in your file that you handled all the admission paperwork yourself. You're very independent." Maya smiled weakly. She had been forced to be. Just as the nurse was about to leave, the door opened again. This time, Maya's heart stopped. Standing in the doorway was a tall man in an expensive navy suit. His silver hair was slicked back, and his presence filled the room like a wave of authority. "Dad," Maya whispered. It was Richard Callahan, her father. They hadn't spoken much in the past 3 years, not since she married Derek. Her father had been hurt by her choice, and she had been too proud to admit she might have made a mistake. Their relationship had cooled to occasional texts and awkward holiday calls. But here he was, in person, unannounced. "Dad, how did you know I was here?" Maya tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. "I'm still your father, Maya." Richard's deep voice was gruff, but his eyes softened as he looked toward the bassinet. His assistant stood behind him, holding an enormous gift basket filled with baby items. "I came to meet my grandson." Richard walked slowly toward the bassinet. He peered down at the tiny sleeping baby, and for a moment, his hardened businessman's face melted into something almost tender. "A boy," he murmured. "Yes, Dad, your grandson." Maya felt a swell of pride despite everything. But then Richard's expression changed. His eyes scanned the room. The chipped paint on the walls, the squeaky ceiling fan, the simple plastic bassinet, and then his gaze landed on the second-hand blanket wrapped around his grandson. "Maya," his voice was flat, "you're in a room like this." "It's a shared room, Dad. It's clean. It's what we can afford." Maya felt her stomach tighten. "And this blanket," he reached out and touched the fabric, his face twisting. "Where did you get this?" I bought it at a thrift store, Dad. It's good quality. I washed it." Richard was silent, his jaw clenched. He looked at his daughter, lying in a hospital bed in a room meant for people with no options, her baby wrapped in someone else's discarded blanket. Something dark flickered in his eyes. "Maya," he said slowly, "I came here expecting to find you in a private suite. I thought you would be giving my grandson the best." "Dad, Richard held up his hand. "But what do I see? A shared room, cheap supplies, and you look." He paused, taking in her pale face, her dark circles. Her thin frame. "You look exhausted, worn out. Maya, what is going on?" Maya's heart began to race. She didn't know what to say. And then Richard asked the question that would change everything. "Daughter, aren't the $4,000 a month I've been sending you enough?" The world stopped. Maya felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. "What?" She let out a shaky laugh. $4,000? Dad, what are you talking about?" Richard's face hardened. "I never joke about money, Maya. For 3 years, on the first of every month, I have transferred $4,000 to your household. I sent it to Derek's account because I trusted him to take care of you. I wanted you to live comfortably without having to ask." Maya's blood ran cold. Her hands began to tremble. $4,000 every month for 3 years. "Yes," Richard's voice was like steel. "That's $144,000, Maya, so I'll ask you again. Was it not enough?" Maya shook her head violently. "Dad, I never saw that money, not a single dollar. I paid for everything myself. The baby's supplies, my doctor visits, everything. I worked as a freelancer because we had no money, because Gloria said." She stopped, her throat closed up. Just then the door swung open again, and there they were, Derek and Gloria. Their arms were loaded with shopping bags. Designer logos peeked out from expensive paper bags. Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Coach. Gloria was laughing. "Derek, you spoil me too much, but that red purse was just calling my name." They stepped into the room and froze. Derek's face went white the moment he saw Richard standing there. The shopping bags nearly slipped from his hands. The silence was deafening. Gloria recovered first. She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Callahan, what a surprise. You should have told us you were coming. We would have prepared something special." Richard didn't move. He didn't blink. His gaze was fixed on the shopping bags, then on Derek's sweating face, and then back to his daughter lying in the hospital bed. "Derek," Richard's voice was low and dangerous. "Where is the money I sent you?" Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. He looked at his mother for help. What money, Mr. Callahan? Gloria's voice was sickeningly sweet. I'm afraid I don't understand. Don't play games with me. Richard took a step forward. For 3 years, I transferred $4,000 every month to Derek's bank account. That's $144,000 meant for my daughter's well-being. But she tells me she never saw a dime. Meanwhile, you two walk in here carrying thousands of dollars in luxury goods. Gloria's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly, putting a hand on her chest in mock surprise. Mr. Callahan, you must be mistaken. We have no idea what you're talking about. In fact, we've been struggling. Your daughter is quite the spender, you know, always wanting expensive things. Her pregnancy cravings were ridiculous. We could barely keep up. Maya's head snapped toward her mother-in-law. That's a lie. I never asked for anything expensive. I ate whatever you cooked, even when there wasn't enough. I wore the same 3 maternity outfits for 9 months. I bought everything for this baby with money I earned myself. See, Gloria pointed at Maya with a manicured finger. This is what she does. She plays the victim. She cries and makes herself look pitiful. Don't fall for it, Mr. Callahan. Your daughter is a manipulator. Maya felt like she had been slapped. She looked at Derek, begging him silently to say something, to defend her, to tell the truth. But Derek just stood there, trembling, his eyes fixed on the floor. Richard reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. I'm not here to play games, he said calmly. I track every dollar that leaves my accounts, every single one. He dialed a number. Yes, this is Richard Callahan. I need a complete statement of all transfers made to the account under Derek Walker's name for the past 3 years. Every deposit, every expense. Send it to my phone immediately. He hung up and looked at Derek with a gaze that could freeze fire. You have about 2 minutes to tell me the truth before I get that report, and I suggest you don't waste those 2 minutes lying to me. Derek's knees buckled. He looked like he might faint. Gloria, for the first time, seemed genuinely afraid. Maya's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. All those years, all that suffering, all those late nights working until her back screamed in pain. All those times she went hungry because there wasn't enough money. All those moments she felt guilty for wanting basic things like vitamins or comfortable clothes. It had all been a lie. Ping, Richard's phone chimed. An email had arrived. He opened it, his face expressionless as he scrolled through the document. But his eyes told a different story. They grew darker with every line he read. Derek, Richard said finally. His voice was eerily calm. Shall I read some highlights? Derek began to cry, actually cry, tears streaming down his face. Dad, please, please, I can explain. It was my mother's idea. She made me do it. I love Maya. I never wanted. Last month, Richard interrupted, ignoring Derek completely. $4,000 deposited on the 1st. On the 3rd, a $2,800 charge at a luxury jewelry store. On the 5th, $1,500 at a spa resort. On the 7th, a designer handbag purchase for $900. He looked up. Meanwhile, my daughter was eating instant noodles and working until 3 a.m. to pay for her own prenatal vitamins. Gloria's face twisted with rage. So what? It's Derek's money. You put it in his account, not hers. That means it belongs to him. And what a son does for his mother is none of your business. What a son does with money meant for his pregnant wife. Richard's voice rose for the first time. While she's starving, while my grandson is wrapped in a second-hand blanket, you call that a son's duty. She's fine, look at her. She's dramatic, always playing the martyr. If she really needed money, she could have asked. But no, she wanted to look pitiful so she could run back to Daddy. Maya had heard enough. Mother-in-law, she said, her voice shaking but firm. When I was 7 months pregnant, I asked Derek for $25 to buy the vitamins my doctor prescribed. You said we couldn't afford it. You said doctors just want to scam people. That same week, I saw you wearing a new gold bracelet. Gloria's face flushed red. When I was 8 months pregnant, Maya continued, I worked until 4 a.m. every night to finish a design project. I was so tired I could barely see straight. The baby kicked constantly. I could barely eat. And Derek, he went to sleep. Not once did he offer to help. Not once did he ask if I was okay. Derek tried to reach for Maya's hand. Sweetheart, please, let me explain, it's not what you think. Maya pulled her hand away like she had been burned. Don't touch me. Maya, please. Don't touch me. The room fell silent. Even the squeaky ceiling fan seemed to pause. Gloria's face cycled through a dozen emotions. Shock, anger, fear, and then something Maya hadn't expected, defiance. Fine, Gloria suddenly shouted. Yes, we used the money, so what? Is that a crime? Derek is my son. A good son takes care of his mother. That's how it should be. That's how it's always been. If you wanted the money so badly, you should have fought for it. But no, you were too weak, too pathetic, too busy playing the suffering wife. Richard's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Mrs. Walker, I suggest you stop talking. Why? Because you're rich, because you think you can bully us. Gloria stepped forward, her fear now replaced by reckless anger. I was against this marriage from the beginning. I told Derek, don't marry a rich man's daughter. They're spoiled. They're useless. They expect to be served. And I was right. Maya felt each word like a knife. We thought marrying into wealth would make life easier, Gloria continued, her voice rising. But your daughter, she pretended to be poor, wore rags, cooked cheap food, made us look bad in front of the neighbors. My friends would ask, Gloria, why does your daughter-in-law look like she can't afford clothes? I was humiliated. So when you started sending that money, I told Derek, this is compensation. This is payment for putting up with her. Mother-in-law, Maya's voice cracked. I wore old clothes because I had no money. I cooked cheap food because that's all I could afford. I wasn't trying to embarrass you. I was just trying to survive. Survive? Gloria laughed bitterly. Drama queen. You worked those little freelance jobs because you wanted to feel important, not because you needed the money. And now you're crying to your daddy like a little girl. That's enough. Richard's voice cut through the room like a blade. He pulled out his phone again and dialed a number. The room fell silent. Hello, James. Prepare my legal team immediately. He paused, his eyes never leaving Derek and Gloria. File a divorce petition on behalf of my daughter, Maya Callahan, full custody of the child, and prepare a civil lawsuit for embezzlement and fraud. I want complete seizure of all assets purchased with the misappropriated funds. Another pause. Yes, the car and the house, everything. I want it done today. Derek's legs gave out. He literally collapsed to his knees. Dad, please, please don't do this. I'll pay it back. I'll work 3 jobs. I'll do anything. Just please, please don't send me to jail. Maya watched her husband, the man she had loved, the man she had defended against her own father, the man she had trusted with her future. He was on his knees, sobbing, begging, but not for her forgiveness, not for their marriage. He was begging to stay out of prison. Derek, Maya's voice was hollow. Look at me. Derek raised his tear-streaked face. I'm going to ask you one question, just one, and I want you to answer honestly. Derek nodded frantically. 3 months ago, when I was 8 months pregnant and working all night to finish a project for a client. You saw me, didn't you? You saw me sitting at the kitchen table at 3 a.m., barely able to keep my eyes open, my back aching, the baby kicking so hard I couldn't breathe. Derek swallowed. And you knew, Maya continued, her voice steady now. You knew there was over $100,000 sitting in your bank account, money my father sent for me, for us, for our baby. Derek's lower lip trembled. You knew I was suffering, and you did nothing. You said nothing. You just went back to bed. A long, painful silence. Answer me, Derek. Derek's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, I knew. Something inside Maya shattered. But from the pieces, something new began to form, something harder, stronger. She had spent 3 years blaming herself, feeling guilty for not having enough, feeling like a burden, but she wasn't the problem. She had never been the problem. Maya turned to her father. Her eyes were dry now. Her voice was calm. Dad, I want out. Get me and my son out of here, now. Richard nodded once. Consider it done. Gloria exploded. You ungrateful witch, after everything we did for you, this is how you repay us, by taking everything. Everything you did for me? Maya let out a laugh that held no humor. You starved me. You humiliated me. You stole money meant for my health and my baby's well-being. And now you stand there acting like the victim. You'll regret this, Zola, Gloria screamed. You think you can survive without Derek? Who's going to want a divorced woman with a baby? You'll come crawling back to us, begging for forgiveness. Maya shook her head slowly. No, Gloria, I won't. I crawled for 3 years. I'm done crawling. The next hour was a blur. 2 security guards arrived to escort Derek and Gloria out of the room. Derek kept crying, kept begging, but his words meant nothing anymore. Gloria screamed threats until she was physically removed from the floor. Maya was transferred to a private suite on the top floor. The room was enormous, soft lighting, a comfortable bed that actually supported her aching body, a proper crib for her son with soft blankets and new baby supplies. A nurse helped her settle in. Mrs. Callahan, is there anything else you need? Maya looked at her son sleeping peacefully in his new crib. No, thank you. I have everything I need now. That night, alone in the quiet room, Maya finally allowed herself to cry. Not tears of sadness, tears of release, tears she had been holding back for years. She cried for the woman she used to be. She cried for the suffering she had endured in silence. She cried for the love she had wasted on people who never deserved it. And when the tears finally stopped, she felt lighter than she had in years. The next morning, her phone buzzed with message after message, all from Derek. Maya, please pick up. I'm sorry, I was wrong. It was all my mother's fault. She manipulated me. Please give me another chance, for our son. Maya, I love you. Please. Maya read each message with a blank expression. Then she held down the power button and turned off the phone. There was no us anymore. 2 weeks later, Maya sat in her father's office. The divorce papers were spread out on the desk between them. Her lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, had outlined everything. The divorce petition has been filed, Patricia said. Full custody of your son has been requested. Given the evidence of financial abuse and neglect during your pregnancy, we're confident the court will rule in your favor. And the assets? Richard asked. The car Derek purchased with Maya's money has been seized. The house renovation that Gloria funded with the misappropriated funds is being evaluated. We've also filed a civil suit for the full $144,000 plus interest. They've been given the option to cooperate or face criminal charges. Maya took a deep breath. Did they cooperate? Patricia nodded grimly. They had no choice. Derek signed everything yesterday. The house, the car, acknowledgement of the debt. Gloria threw a fit, but in the end, she signed too. They're both currently unemployed. Derek was terminated from his company immediately after Mr. Callahan made a single phone call. Maya felt a pang of something. Not sympathy, not guilt, just emptiness. She had loved Derek once. She had trusted him, and now he had nothing. But that wasn't her fault. He had made his choices, and choices have consequences. What happens to them now? Maya asked quietly. That's not your concern anymore, Richard said firmly. They dug their own grave. Let them lie in it. Maya nodded. She signed the final document, her hand steady. It was over. But really, it was just beginning. 3 months passed. Maya moved into a beautiful apartment her father had arranged. It wasn't as lavish as the penthouse he had originally offered, but Maya had insisted on something modest. Something she could eventually afford on her own. Dad, I don't want to be dependent on you forever, she had told him. I want to build something myself, for me and for my son. Richard had looked at her with something like pride. Then tell me what you need. Maya had thought about it for days. During all those late nights working while pregnant, she had dreamed about the kind of business she would start if she ever had the chance. And now she had that chance. I want to start a clothing line, she told her father. Modest fashion for young mothers, comfortable, elegant clothes that don't cost a fortune, and a line of baby products too, premium quality but accessible prices. I know what it feels like to not have enough. I want to create something for women like me. Richard listened carefully. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair. Write me a business plan, detailed. Production costs, marketing strategy, projected profits. If it's viable, I'll give you a loan, not a gift. A loan, you'll pay me back with interest. Maya's heart soared. This was exactly what she wanted, not charity, an opportunity. Deal. She threw herself into the work. She designed during nap time and made calls during feeding time. Her college friend Tanya, who had an MBA and was looking for a new challenge, agreed to come on board as her business partner. "You're crazy, Maya," Tanya had laughed during their first meeting. "Starting a business with a newborn, you're going to drive yourself insane." Maya smiled. "I've already been through insane. This is just hard work. I can handle hard work." And she could. Night after night, she refined her designs. She researched suppliers. She built her brand identity. She created a website. She connected with other young mothers online, asking them what they wanted, what they needed, what was missing in the market. The response was overwhelming. Women were hungry for exactly what Maya was offering. Clothes that were stylish but modest, comfortable but flattering. Baby products that were safe and beautiful but didn't cost a month's salary. "Grace Collection," Maya announced to Tanya one evening. "That's what I want to call it, because every mother deserves to feel graceful, no matter what she's going through." Tanya grinned. "I love it." Richard reviewed Maya's business plan. He asked tough questions. He poked holes in her projections. He challenged her assumptions. And when he was finally satisfied, he transferred the startup capital into her business account. "Don't disappoint me," he said, but there was a twinkle in his eye. "I won't, Dad." And she didn't. Meanwhile, across town, Derek and Gloria's world had completely collapsed. The beautiful house was gone, seized and sold. The luxury car had been repossessed. All the designer bags Gloria had hoarded were sold at a fraction of their value just to pay for food and rent. They now lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. The walls were thin. The pipes leaked. The smell of detergent and mildew permeated everything. Derek had tried to find work, but his reputation was destroyed. Every company he applied to somehow knew about his history. Richard Callahan's reach was long. No one wanted to hire a man who had embezzled money from his own wife. Eventually, Derek found work as a delivery driver for a local restaurant. The pay was minimum wage. The hours were long. His back ached from carrying heavy bags up and down apartment stairs. Gloria, who had once bragged about her son's success at every social gathering, now avoided going outside. The neighbors whispered about them. The friends who had once admired her designer bags now looked at her with pity or scorn. One evening, Derek came home exhausted. His clothes were stained with grease. His shoes were falling apart. He collapsed onto the lumpy mattress that served as their bed. $65, he muttered, throwing a handful of wrinkled bills onto the table. "That's what I made today." Gloria stared at the money. Once, $65 wouldn't have covered the coffee she ordered at her favorite cafe. Now it was supposed to feed them for a week. "This is all her fault," Gloria hissed. "That witch Maya. If she had just stayed quiet, if she hadn't run to her daddy, we would still have everything." Derek didn't respond. He was too tired to fight. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered the truth. This wasn't Maya's fault. It was his. He had stolen from his wife. He had watched her suffer and done nothing. He had chosen his mother's greed over his wife's well-being. This was karma, and karma was just getting started. 8 months after Maya's son was born, something unexpected happened. Derek received a call from an old friend who owned a small accounting firm. The friend offered him a job, nothing fancy, just basic bookkeeping work, but it was a lifeline. Derek threw himself into the work, desperate to climb back up. But old habits die hard. Within 3 months, he had skimmed $3,000 from the company's accounts, thinking no one would notice. He was wrong. The police arrested him at his desk on a Tuesday afternoon. The charges were embezzlement and fraud. This time, there was no rich father-in-law to negotiate with, no expensive lawyers to find loopholes. Derek was sentenced to 18 months in prison. When Gloria heard the news, something inside her broke. Her son, her golden boy, was going to jail. She had no one left. No money, no home, no pride. She started wandering the neighborhood, muttering to herself. Neighbors saw her digging through garbage cans for recyclables to sell. One evening, she was caught trying to steal clothes from a laundromat. The owner called the police. The woman who had once mocked Maya for buying a second-hand blanket was now wearing clothes she had pulled from a dumpster. Maya heard about all of this through mutual acquaintances. She didn't feel joy. She didn't feel satisfaction. She just felt free. Their downfall wasn't her doing. She hadn't wished harm on them. She had simply walked away and built her own life. Their destruction was entirely self-inflicted. And Maya was soaring. Grace Collection launched to incredible success. The website crashed twice on launch day from overwhelming traffic. Orders poured in from across the country. Mothers shared photos of themselves wearing Maya's designs, tagging her on social media, writing heartfelt messages about how the clothes made them feel beautiful again. Within 6 months, Grace Collection opened its first physical store, a small boutique in a trendy shopping district. The opening day was packed with customers. Local news covered the event. "Miss Callahan," a reporter asked, sticking a microphone in her face, "your brand has become incredibly popular in such a short time. What's your secret?" Maya smiled, her son Noah balanced on her hip. "I designed for women like me, women who are tired, who are struggling, who feel invisible. I wanted to remind them that they're still beautiful, that they matter, that they deserve to feel good about themselves." The interview went viral. Orders doubled. Richard watched from the sidelines, beaming with pride. His daughter had become everything he knew she could be, not because of his money or his connections, but because of her own resilience, her own vision, her own heart. 1 year after the worst day of her life, Maya threw a party. It was Noah's first birthday, but it was more than that. It was a celebration of survival, of transformation, of new beginnings. The party wasn't held in a fancy venue. Maya chose a local children's home instead. She had partnered with them as part of Grace Collection's charity initiative, donating clothes and supplies to children in need. The children laughed and played. Noah, now walking on unsteady legs, tottered around with a huge grin on his face. Maya's father stood nearby, watching his daughter with misty eyes. "I'm proud of you," Richard said quietly. Maya looked at him. "I couldn't have done it without you, Dad. You believed in me when I had stopped believing in myself." "No," Richard shook his head. "I gave you an opportunity. You did the rest. Every late night, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt you pushed through. That was all you." Maya hugged her father tight. For the first time in years, she felt complete. Tanya rushed over, her phone in hand. "Maya, the numbers are in. Grace Collection just hit $1 million in sales this quarter." Maya's jaw dropped. $1 million. $1 million. Tanya was practically jumping up and down. "We did it. We actually did it." Maya looked around, at the laughing children, at her son, at her father, at her best friend and business partner. A year ago, she had been lying in a hospital bed, exhausted and broken, wrapped in a cheap blanket and wondering how she would survive. Now she was standing in the light. But then something happened that Maya never expected, something that would test everything she had built. The unexpected thing came in the form of a letter, plain white envelope, no return address. Maya found it in her mailbox on a cold Tuesday morning. She almost threw it away, thinking it was junk mail, but something made her open it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in shaky script. "Maya, I know I don't deserve to write to you. I know you probably hate me. I hate myself too. I'm writing from the county correctional facility. I have 8 more months on my sentence. Every day I wake up in this cell and I think about what I did, what I lost, what I threw away. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't expect it. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, truly sorry. Not because I got caught, not because I'm in prison, but because I failed you. I failed our son. My mother is in a state facility now. Her mind is gone. She doesn't recognize me when I call. Maybe that's karma too. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see everything I did wrong. I see the man I should have been and wasn't. I hope Noah is healthy. I hope he never knows what his father did. I hope you find someone who deserves you. I'm sorry. Derek. Maya read the letter 3 times. Her hands didn't shake. Her heart didn't race. She felt nothing, not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction. Just emptiness, where all that pain used to be. She folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. She didn't know if she would ever read it again, but somehow, having it felt important. It was proof that she hadn't imagined everything. Proof that even Derek, in the end, had understood what he had done. That night, after putting Noah to bed, Maya sat by the window of her apartment, looking out at the city lights. Tanya had gone home hours ago. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the baby monitor. Maya thought about the past 2 years. The hospital room, the cheap blanket, the betrayal, the tears, and then the rebuilding, the late nights, the business plans, the first sale, the first store, the $1 million quarter. She had survived, more than survived. She had thrived. But something was still missing, something she couldn't quite name. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Hi Maya, this is James. James Porter. We went to college together. I saw your interview on TV last week. I hope this isn't weird, but I just wanted to say congratulations. What you've built is incredible. I always knew you were special. James. Maya stared at the message, James Porter. She remembered him. Quiet guy, always sat in the back of their marketing class. They had worked on a group project together once. He had been kind, thoughtful, a little shy. She hadn't thought about him in years. She typed back a simple reply. Thank you, James. That means a lot. How are you? What followed was a conversation that lasted until 2 a.m., then another the next night. And the next. James, it turned out, had become a pediatric doctor. He worked at a children's hospital downtown, specializing in developmental disorders. He was divorced, no kids, and spent his weekends volunteering at community health clinics. Why pediatrics? Maya asked during one of their late-night phone calls. Because kids are honest, James replied. They don't pretend, they don't play games. When they're happy, they laugh. When they're sad, they cry. I love that about them. Adults could learn a lot from kids. Maya smiled. She knew exactly what he meant. Their first date was at a small cafe near Maya's boutique. James showed up with flowers, not expensive roses, simple daisies. You mentioned once in college that you liked daisies, he said, a little embarrassed. I wasn't sure if you still did. Maya's heart melted. He remembered something she had said over a decade ago. The date lasted 4 hours. They talked about everything. Their dreams, their failures, their fears. Maya told him about Derek, about the stolen money, about the hospital room, about rebuilding her life from nothing. James listened without interrupting. When she finished, he reached across the table and took her hand. I'm sorry you went through that, he said quietly. But I'm glad you're here now. I'm glad you didn't let it break you. Maya felt tears prick her eyes, but these weren't sad tears. These were different. These were the kind of tears that come when you finally feel understood. Months passed. James became a regular presence in Maya's life. He was patient with Noah, who took a while to warm up to new people. He never pushed, never demanded. He just showed up consistently, kindly, lovingly. One evening, James was at Maya's apartment, helping her assemble a new bookshelf for Noah's room. The little boy was playing on the floor nearby, stacking blocks and knocking them down with delighted giggles. Maya, James said, pausing with a screwdriver in hand, I need to tell you something. Maya looked up, her heart suddenly nervous. What is it? James took a deep breath. I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I think I've been falling since college. I just never had the courage to say anything back then. He paused. I know you've been hurt. I know trusting someone again is scary. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I needed you to know. Maya was silent for a long moment. The only sound was Noah babbling happily in the corner. Then she smiled. a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "James," she said softly, "I think I'm falling for you too." The bookshelf was forgotten. They sat on the floor together, Noah playing between them, and talked until the sun came up. 1 year later, on a warm spring afternoon, Maya stood in front of a full-length mirror. She was wearing a simple white dress from her own collection. Elegant, modest, perfect. Tanya fussed with her veil. "You're going to make me cry and ruin my makeup," she complained, but her eyes were already wet. Maya laughed. "You've cried at every fitting. I don't know why today would be different." "Because today is the day," Tanya exclaimed. "Today my best friend is getting married to the most wonderful man. After everything you've been through, you deserve this, Maya. You deserve all of this." There was a knock on the door. Richard Callahan entered, looking distinguished in his formal suit. His eyes immediately filled with tears when he saw his daughter. "Maya," he whispered, you look just like your mother did on our wedding day." Maya's own eyes grew misty. Her mother had passed away when Maya was 15. She rarely spoke about her, but she thought about her every day. "I wish she could be here," Maya said quietly. Richard walked over and took her hands. "She is here, she's watching, and she's so proud of you, just like I am. Dad, I want to thank you for everything, for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself, for giving me the chance to start over, for being my rock." Richard shook his head. "You did all the hard work, sweetheart. I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it and built something beautiful." He offered his arm. "Ready." Maya took a deep breath. "Ready." The ceremony was held in a garden venue, surrounded by flowers and sunshine. Noah, now 3 years old, walked down the aisle as the ring bearer, clutching a small pillow with intense concentration. The guests laughed and cooed at his serious little face. James stood at the altar, his eyes locked on Maya as she walked toward him. He looked like a man who couldn't believe his luck. When Maya reached him, he took her hand. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "You're not so bad yourself," she whispered back. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They had written their own vows. James went first. "Maya, when I met you in college, I thought you were the most incredible woman I had ever seen. Smart, kind, creative. I was too shy to tell you then. And then life happened. We went our separate ways. But somehow the universe brought you back to me. And this time, I'm not letting you go." He squeezed her hand. "I promise to love you on your best days and your worst days. I promise to be patient, to be kind, to be your partner in everything. I promise to love Noah like he's my own, because in my heart, he already is. I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel alone again." Maya wiped her eyes. Then she took a deep breath and began her vows. "James, 3 years ago, I was at the lowest point of my life. I had lost everything I thought I knew. I was broken, scared, and convinced I would never trust anyone again. But then you came along, not with grand gestures or flashy promises, just with kindness, patience, consistency. You showed me that love doesn't have to hurt, that a good man doesn't just say the right things, he does the right things." She paused, her voice thick with emotion. "You taught me to hope again. You taught me to believe in love again. I promise to spend the rest of my life loving you, supporting you, and building our family together. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your home." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared. "You may kiss the bride." James pulled Maya close and kissed her softly. The guests erupted in applause. Noah ran up and hugged their legs, and they scooped him up between them, laughing. A family, a real family. The reception was joyful and warm. There was dancing, laughter, and countless toasts. Richard gave a speech that made everyone cry. Tanya gave a speech that made everyone laugh. As the evening wound down, Maya stepped outside for a moment of quiet. She stood on the terrace, looking up at the stars. James found her there a few minutes later. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. Maya leaned back against him. "I'm thinking about how different my life could have been if I had stayed with Derek, if I hadn't had the courage to leave, if my father hadn't shown up at that hospital. But you did leave. You did have courage, and here you are." "Here I am," Maya repeated. She turned to face him. "James, do you believe in second chances?" "I believe in you," he said simply. "And I believe that everything you went through led you here, led you to me, led us to this moment." Maya smiled. "I love you. I love you too, forever." They stood there in the moonlight, wrapped in each other's arms, as the sounds of celebration drifted from inside. 2 years later, Grace Collection had become a nationwide brand. Maya opened her 20th store, this time in New York City. The grand opening was covered by major fashion magazines. Celebrities wore her designs, but Maya never forgot where she came from. Every month, a portion of the company's profits went to charities supporting single mothers, domestic abuse survivors, and children in need. Maya personally visited shelters and community centers, donating clothes and speaking to women who were going through what she had once experienced. "You can survive this," she would tell them. "I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you are stronger than you know, and there is a beautiful life waiting for you on the other side." Her story inspired thousands. Women wrote to her from all over the country, sharing how her words had given them courage to leave toxic relationships, to start businesses, to believe in themselves again. Maya kept every letter in a special box in her office. At home, life was peaceful and full of love. James had officially adopted Noah, and the little boy now called him Daddy with absolute certainty. They had also welcomed a baby girl, Lily, who had James's eyes and Maya's smile. Richard Callahan, now a doting grandfather, visited every weekend. He had retired from his business empire to spend more time with his grandchildren. Nothing made him happier than sitting on the floor, building block towers with Noah, and making silly faces at Lily. One Sunday afternoon, the whole family gathered for a barbecue in Maya and James's backyard. Noah was chasing bubbles. Lily was napping in her grandfather's arms. Tanya was arguing good-naturedly with her husband about the best way to grill burgers. Maya stood at the edge of the yard, watching it all with a full heart. James walked up beside her and handed her a glass of lemonade. "Penny for your thoughts." Maya smiled. "I was just thinking about how lucky I am." "Luck had nothing to do with it," James said. "You built this life. Brick by brick, you fought for it." "We built it," Maya corrected. "Together." James kissed her forehead. "Together." Later that evening, after the guests had gone and the children were asleep, Maya sat in her home office. She was finalizing plans for a new initiative, a scholarship program for young mothers who wanted to start their own businesses. Her phone buzzed, a news alert. She glanced at it and froze. "Local man dies in prison altercation. Derek Walker, 34, serving sentence for embezzlement." Maya stared at the headline for a long moment. She didn't click on it. She didn't need the details. She felt a wave of something. Not grief, not satisfaction, just closure. Derek had made his choices. He had lived with the consequences, and now his story was over. But Maya's story was still being written. She closed the news app and opened her email instead. A message from a young single mother who had just launched her own small business with help from Maya's scholarship program. "Dear Mrs. Porter, I just wanted to thank you. 6 months ago, I was living in a shelter with my daughter. I had nothing. I thought my life was over. Then I found your program. Today, I opened my first pop-up shop. It's small. It's just a table at a local market, but it's mine, and it's a start. You gave me hope when I had none. You showed me that broken things can be made beautiful again. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. Sarah." Maya read the email 3 times. Tears streamed down her face, but these were the best kind of tears. She typed a reply. "Dear Sarah, I am so proud of you. What you've accomplished is incredible. Never forget how strong you are. This is just the beginning. Keep going. Keep believing. Your daughter is watching and she's learning from the best. With love and admiration. Maya." She hit send and leaned back in her chair. Through the window, she could see the moon rising over the backyard where her children had played just hours ago. She could hear James moving around in the kitchen, probably making tea like he always did before bed. She thought about the woman she had been 4 years ago, exhausted, broken, alone in a hospital room, wrapped in a cheap blanket, wondering how she would survive. That woman felt like a stranger now, a distant memory. Maya had risen from the ashes. She had built a business, a family, a life filled with love and purpose. She had turned her pain into power and her story into hope for others. And she had done it all without losing her kindness, her grace, her heart. She smiled, wiped her tears, and walked to the kitchen where her husband was waiting with 2 cups of chamomile tea and a warm smile. "Everything okay?" James asked. Maya wrapped her arms around him and rested her head against his chest. "Everything is perfect," she whispered. And it was. The little girl who had once doubted her worth had become a woman who inspired thousands. The wife who had been betrayed had found a love that was true and lasting. The mother who had feared she couldn't provide had given her children a life of abundance and joy. From that hospital room to this beautiful home, from that second-hand blanket to a fashion empire, from heartbreak to happiness, Maya Callahan Porter had walked through fire and emerged golden. And she lived happily ever after, with her family, with her purpose, with a heart full of gratitude, with a big, beautiful smile. The end. Did you enjoy this story? Let me know in the comments which city you're listening from. If you loved it, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps me create more stories like this one. I'll see you in the next one, with love and respect.